And good evening once again to all of you out there. Welcome to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And guess what time it is? It's time for new comics, bitches! Yeah, so it is, it's the 23rd. It's now Monday, the 23rd of January. So this is for the previous week, as is customary, because I do this on late Tuesday night, or late Sunday night, early Monday morning. Because that's just the best time for me to gather all my thoughts and write down all my reviews and really read everything that's come out in the given week. That's why these come up kind of late. So, let's begin. So, Daredevil, number 8. Things just got really weird in this issue. Mark Waid has taken a very different tack than pretty much any previous writer has on Daredevil in decades, really. And it's interesting. I mean, and I love it. Believe me. I mean, as much as I love, some of the Bendis stuff, all of the Brubaker stuff, and as much as I really don't like the Andy Diggle stuff, this has really separated itself very distinctly from, like I said, pretty much all of the Daredevil that's come before it since probably the 70s, and it's done so in a really, really brilliant way. But it's nice to know that some things never change, and one of those things is that Daredevil is still very much a himbo. He is willing to pretty much bed hop with just about anybody out there. I mean, we have not heard in Waid's in the 8 issues that Waid's been on it, we haven't heard anything about Mila and what's happening to her. That obviously she's still in an asylum after recovering from everything that she went through with Mr. Fear and so on and so forth. But, and even on that run with Brubaker still writing it, he was hopping into bed with Dakota North and so on and so forth. But I'm not sensing the kind of Catholic guilt that so many writers have previously brought to this, and that's a good thing. I mean, however, I think this is definitely him him getting it on with the Black Cat is something that's going to kind of come back to haunt him. You kind of get that feeling. Just the exchange, the wonderful exchange where she calls him horn dog, and he says horn head. That's just that's really very good stuff. And Waid, his his last issue of Amazing Spider-Man was great. This one, not so great. Still really good. Very, very solid issue. And a very good issue. But just not great. Now, what's interesting here is that the mystery of the actual crime is solved, but we're left with kind of this double cliffhanger here. That, okay, well, whose allegiance does... who has the allegiance of Felicia Hardy? Is it the Secret Empire, or is it Daredevil and Spider-Man? And there's some, there's that great moment with Spider-Man. It's like, well, I think this is the beginning of my... Did my ear just grow a tail? Where he says, where he's watching basically Daredevil and Black Cat make out, and he says, I think this is the origin of me being a supervillain, or something to that effect. It's just really clever stuff. And then, of course, you have the other cliffhanger is, where is his father's body? Now, art-wise, I'm missing the work of the Riveras, and I was obviously, as always, missing Marco Martin, because if he's kind of established himself as an artist who will come to this series, and I want him to be around a lot, because he's one of my very favorite artists out there. But Kano, who does the, I don't know if it's just guest artisting here or if he's doing the art from now on. Again, it's so weird, the shakeups as far as writer and artist teams on these books. is really kind of almost getting confusing. And we'll explore a little bit of that a little bit later on. You know, this is really a watershed issue for Waid, because the direction that he takes after this is really going to define what he does with this character. Because we've got already, you know, he's going back to the whole Scarlet Swashbuckler thing, and that's been great, but this is kind of going in a more grim direction than what we've seen of his stuff so far. So will he kind of travel back down the road that has preceded him by Miller and by Bendis and by Brubaker? I'm hoping that it won't. I'm really hoping that. So it was a 4 out of 5. Like I said, it's still a really solid, still a really good and well-written issue, but it just, something about it left me a little, mostly this whole kind of thing with you know, his father's body, and, you know, just kind of wondering where it's going to go from here. Of course, I'm going to stay around for the ride, because this is just it's an amazing book, but this issue just left a little bit to be desired. So, moving along into the Spider-Man territory, the other Spider-Man territory. So we've got Amazing Spider-Man 678 that came out this week. Pretty quick, obviously, after, you know, the last one just came out last week. But, you know, we have, you know, it's just some really weird shit has gone on for Spidey this week, obviously. You know, first, you know, he gets kind of cock-blocked by Daredevil, and then, of course, he finds out that he might very well be responsible for the destruction of New York. So that's, it's not a good couple of days here for Spidey. You know, we have this, you know, obviously, you know, Horizon Labs, we have this doorway that can see into the future, and, you know, one of his coworkers goes through it and everything seems okay. He brings back a newspaper from the next day, and then Spidey goes through it, and then all of a sudden New York is leveled, is completely destroyed. You know, the MacGuffin here with that kind of, you know, going into the future a little bit, you know, that the trope of that is, it's very well known, it's very familiar. But Slott, you know, he has a lot of really, really good fun and creativity with this idea of knowing the future. So there's a lot of play with that. And there's some really fun stuff that goes on here, you know, like, you know, that, you know, one of the bad guys is about to reveal, you know, one of the bad guys that Spidey takes down is about to reveal his identity to the world. And he's like, screw it, I've got better things to do. I've got other things to do. I've got to save whatever is going to happen today. I've got to stop it. And then we have Flag Smasher and Ultimatum, who are, they've been kind of, well, at least for me, they've been pretty absent. And they are kind of a team, you know, other than like AIM and Hydra, these are guys that I also like, because they're very underrated, I think. And just the idea of Flag Smasher and Ultimatum in and of themselves, obviously they're scumbag terrorists, but they're, they have a certain, you know, it's more of a, they have a more interesting manifesto than, you know, like AIM or Hydra, or, you know, the other big terrorist groups that are in the Marvel Universe. So that was nice to see. And, you know, Ramos's art is terrific here, as it usually is. And, you know, and Slott, you know, Dan Slott's just in terrific form here. So, I mean, this is, you know, another really excellent issue of his. You know, this is a 4.5 out of 5, no contest. It's just, you know, he writes Spidey the way that no one has written him before. He's made him powerful, he's made him relevant, he's made him really cool, and the stories that he tells have much more emotional weight than, you know, anything that's come out, I think, maybe ever. I think he's the best writer ever on Spider-Man, and that's my 2 cents, because, you know, just so many people that have come before him, they just don't have that thing that Slott has to make this character so special. And I really admire the hell out of Slott for really putting his all into just about every single issue of this comic, and that he's dedicated himself solely to this comic. Because you've got, you know, you've got these other artists and these other writers doing 12 different titles and everything like that. And Slott, while being kind of a superstar in his own right, is still very much dedicated solely to Spider-Man. So that, to me, is terrific. And speaking of Spider-Man, again this week, we have Avenging Spider-Man #3. Now this is I'm reviewing this here merely because it is a book that is of some interest to me, but not enough to put it as a pull box selection, because it's just not really that good. However, this issue has been the best of the three. Zeb Wells and Joey Mad, they do some pretty solid work, surprisingly solid work, I would say here. Like I said, still not pull worthy. And I read it because it was at the store and at my comic shop, and they're really cool about just letting you read whatever the hell you want. Like, I actually started to read this week's issue of Uncanny X-Force, and I didn't like that, mostly because I didn't really care for the art at all. But I love Captain Britain, so I wanted to keep reading it, but it was like, I just can't get past this art. The art is just really bad. But this book, you can pretty much rely on it for a very consistently breezy read. It's a lot of style, very little substance. You have some really nice fun moments here and there, but this is nothing that's ever going to have any repercussions in the other aspects of Spidey's world, and maybe that's what it should be. But again, this is not going to be a book that I'm going to spend money on every month. So So that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. So that's a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, it's never been bad. It's just never going to be great, and that's what I want from a book. I want a book to have an issue that just really is like, wow, this is really good. Like, so I'm sure that I'll continue reading it when I'm at the bookstore, but other than that, I'm not going to be putting it in my pull box anytime soon. So. Okay. Avengers number 21. This is out of my pull box now. It's gone. It just, I'm going to keep New Avengers. I'm going to keep Secret Avengers. I'm glad that I jumped from this to New Avengers. I'm glad that I got caught up on New Avengers, because that is a really solid book. And this is not. This is anything but solid. It's just a major yawn. This whole issue that was the first thought that came to me after I read this. It's just yawn, bored, totally bored. The stuff in the other Avengers books, it's way more interesting than the flagship title, which is always a mystery to me. I don't know why that happens, but it does. It happens a lot. You've got all these side titles, and they're really good, and then you've got the main title, and it's like, who cares, man? Nothing really got me going here except for the opening sequence with Spider-Woman kind of pretending that she's still the double agent and everything like that. I thought that was really clever, and it was really well done. But the stuff with Protector and Iron Man, and with the capture of Captain America, it felt like, nah, it's like a big deal. I'm not getting that intensity vibe from it, and I want that. That's what I expect from the Avengers. You're supposed to have that wow factor. This was really awesome. So, again, it's just, the art in this issue also was really subpar. It was, it's a really boring read, and, after the major throwdowns that are coming at you in New Avengers, and the crazy conspiracy worlds of Secret Avengers, and the crazy kind of sci-fi worlds, and the things that have been going on in Warren Ellis's stuff, and even preceding that with Brubaker, and of course the little arc that Nick Spencer did, which was lovely, but ultimately, and obviously they're shaking up Secret Avengers with the next issue. They're going to have a new team. Captain Britain's going to be on it. Yay! The one person I'm still hoping to see at some point in the future is still Union Jack, because, Union Jack is still one of my favorites. But at least I'll get to see Captain Britain every once in a while in Secret Avengers, at least for a while. So this was a 2 out of 5. Like I said, there's very, very few saving graces about this particular issue. And, so it's a 2 kind of teetering on 1.5. So that, sadly, is just not a good read. So we're going to be back, and we're going to talk about some more comics. Okay? So stay tuned.